Hey, good evening, y'all. Hey, this is Bedtime Real Estate. Tonight, we're going to be covering a pretty new topic that's come across in the real estate industry. It's in relation to the large NAR settlement that was done recently. And we're going to cover this topic and see what the ins and out of the settlement was, how does it affect sellers, how does it affect buyers, in terms of how biggest thing in terms of how real estate agents are compensated. And we're going to go through in terms of like going through all the different aspects in terms of like why it's important to still have a realtor to represent either side as to go and purchase your home. We have Ricardo Burton back. Welcome, Ricky, back. Welcome back to Bedtime Real Estate.
What's up, my peoples? Hope all is well. What's up, Pago? Thanks for having me. And yeah, let's get this going.
Yeah, man. So the first thing I say, how was your Father's Day, man? Is okay?
Everything was good. I went to breakfast with the family. I went to dinner. We went to the pool. Just living the life of a dad. I'm loving it.
All right. That's great. I had a great day with my family. Went to the beach the day before. Then we just had some low-key time. In addition to, one of my friends, they just had a baby, which is a great thing, great blessing for Father's Day.
Yep.
So I want to first talk about what the NAR settlement was. So what ended up happening late last year was there was a lawsuit that started out in the Midwest in relation to sellers suing multiple brokerages in addition to the National Real Estate Association. So those brokerages, like most people know, like Keller Williams, William Revis, EXP, all these brokerages were included, large brands that make a lot that do a lot of different volume, and they were all sued by sellers. Sellers thought that some antitrust laws were broken, and they decided to take action. So, pretty much the premise of the lawsuit was, the biggest thing was mostly related to compensation and offering compensation by the seller. So most of the time when you do work with a realtor to sell your home, base things you do, you do the walkthrough through the house, you explain all the needs or your needs are in terms of selling that property. But, one of the bigger conversations you always have with sellers that, how the realtor is being compensated in addition to and how much that compensation would be. Now, what you see right now in terms of like the media and the news, all you see right now is people talking about the 6% commission is dead. 6% commission is dead. And that and also some things in terms of the realtor profession is going downhill. Commissions could be lowered. So those are my kids trying to get into the show. Sorry.
Don't let them in. Don't let them in.
Yeah, I definitely want to let them in. And the premises of that was the lawsuit was based on the commission. So one of the parts of the lawsuit was that some sellers felt that they were not having their properties shown at the best level because realtors would know how much cooperative compensation was given to buyer agents. So right now, how it is on the MLS, the MLS is that when you have a contract and you're offering proper compensation, we can see what the amount is. It can range from 0% up to a fixed rate of $500. That was $10,000. To a percentage can be from 0 to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8%. It could be whatever percentage that is agreed upon between the seller and the realtor to offer to buyer agents. So what some of the sellers were saying is that the sellers were saying that they felt that those who had the higher buyer agency commission had their house shown, and those who didn't have it had lower, their house were not shown because of that reason. And due to that, they felt that, this felt that it was going against some antitrust laws, and decided to bring the suit. So a big part of that was showing what the compensation for a buyer agency was. In addition to that, they felt that some of the sellers felt like they should have had the option not to provide a buyer agency commission, which means that, they just want to pay their realtor They didn't want to pay the realtor that comes in with the buyer. They felt like the buyer should cover their own costs with that. So with that, they started up with probably one seller, two sellers. Then you got attorneys involved, and of course, class action was created. Then all the major brokerages were sued, in addition to the National Realtor Association. So, Rick, do you want to add to it?
No, you hit the nail on the head, and it's going to be difficult for a lot of agents that don't understand what's going on, and they are not able to um, tell their clients what's going on and explain to them why it's going on. So, in regards to being a realtor or being a real estate agent, you have to know what's going on in this market right now and what that NAR settlement is going to change for the industry. And if you don't do that, you're just going to have a bunch of confused agents. You're going to have a bunch of confused clients. And, don't let media, whether it's social media or the news, control the narrative because they're not licensed, they're not knowing what's going on, and, and they're just listening hearsay of what the new rules are. You see in all these news articles saying, "Oh, the buyer agency agreement is gone." That's not true. So we as agents have to educate, our followers, our family, our friends that you know that's not true, and explain to them what exactly is changing because the negotiation piece of how much a seller is allowed to give the buyer agent or cooperation compensation during a deal has always been negotiable, and it will always be negotiable. So it's just being able to put that in the layman's terms of what the NAR settlement is and give that to people so they can understand what's going on. Oh, it's not. So yes, you have the ability to um, give cooperation compensation slash brokerage fees slash commission, and that's always been negotiable. And or you can say, all right, we're not giving it. But then us as the third option is negotiate it within the transaction. Now, um, there are different ways of selling the home depending on which option you choose because I mean, we'll go in that into detail later on in the call, but we've always had the negotiation piece in order to see what the seller is going to provide or not provide, and that's not going to go away.
And that's a great point. We'll go to that in details because I know in the state of Connecticut, we've always had buyer representation agreements with both buyers and sellers. So it's always been documented since the early 90s that there's laws passed covering that. And most people wonder, like, okay, they settled. That means they're assuming guilt, which is not true. A lot of these things are in relation to how the legal system works. So first of all, so the lawsuit came about. All these brokers were sued. National Realtor Association was sued. Then it was found in the courts that they lost in terms of that, but they did appeal. And many of the brokerages appealed and were waiting and we're going to fight a little longer. But in the end, the problem was this: if they win this lawsuit, there's possibly another one will come and they have to fight that one. Then you have a long-term battle with a ton of legal fees that you're going to have to address in the future, was going to cost so much money to just keep fighting the issue that they had to settle once for all, to settle all, so no more legal lawsuits can coming out, because this started in one state, but there were so many copycat lawsuits that started coming out after this one came. So the National Realtor Association decided to settle the suit so that it can settle all suits and all future suits on this matter. And with that, there were some changes that came about from the settlement. I'll say one of the biggest things that came about from the settlement is that in the middle of the summer, there's going to be changes in terms of compensation, in terms of how it's shown. So on MLS, most MLSs will not be able to show buyer agency compensation. So you're not going to be able to see as a buyer agent how much compensation that seller is offering or if they're offering any. But there's still going to be ways for you to find out if they're offering buyer compensation because sellers still want to offer it because it still attracts more people to the house and may get the houses sold. In addition to that, most of the seller agreement seller contracts between a realtor and the seller are going to change. The language is going to change, and there's going to be sections covering the topic of cooperative brokers, meaning that covering like what they're going to offer to a buyer broker agent if they want to offer anything at all. But the biggest thing is probably that came out is that always been true is that everything on a contract between a realtor has always been negotiable. And that's what I explain to all my clients. And I know Ricky does the same thing too. Everything's negotiable. But a realtor doesn't have to accept what you want to offer them, and you don't have to accept what a realtor offer. But that's why you can negotiate and come to a central compromise.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to say I want to cover I wanted to cover the next topic in terms of like why do you think this came about, Rick, in terms of sellers?
Well, a lot of sellers are, listening to other people and thinking that, oh, we got played. Why the heck did we have to pay the buyer agent? Like the buyer needs to be paying the buyer agent. Or they're just trying to save money in regards to how much they're given for cooperation compensation. um, some people are greedy, some people just don't know what they don't know what they don't know. So a lot of people is trying to save money, I understand that. But when you are going into a transaction or going into a contract with the listing agent, or you're going into a contract with the buyer agent, make sure you understand what is being explained and your options and the different scenarios that can happen. I'm assuming the people who think that they got played in the past just didn't read um, the contracts fully, and so they're listening to the social into the media and saying, "Oh, a lot of sellers are have overpaid in the past 15 years because of blah blah blah," and they're just jumping on the bandwagon and saying, "Oh, I overpaid. I want my money back." Um, there's so many different there's so many different opinions going on. You just have to understand, and that's where our job comes in to educate um, you know everyone, whether it's on our social media or the platforms that we have, in order to educate what's going on and what your options are.
And I would say having a conversation with the sellers that most sellers don't really understand how payment for realtor works. They don't realize realtors pay for your photographs, they pay for your staging, they pay for your marketing for your property, they pay for they pay for in terms of their time door knocking for you, getting people to see your house. They pay for the time posting on social media. They also pay for anything you need. You have realtors like mowing people lawns. Some people do all these different services like a full service.
Yeah.
But no, they don't realize that all the upfront costs that they have. In addition to, they don't realize that most brokerages for a certain period of time, you may split the fee that you receive from them, from your brokers that you work for, and you keep a portion, they keep a portion. And sometimes you keep most of it, but so a lot of times you have to split a portion with them.
Right.
And they don't understand how realtors are paid. They really don't understand it. They,
Right.
most people buy homes maybe 2 or 3, 4 or 5 times in their life. So it's not something they do very often.
Hmm.
So they don't know how these realtors are compensated, and they don't really know what the work is behind the scenes that realtors do.
Right.
And like when you're a realtor and you're negotiating a conversation with a seller, they don't, and if it's not properly educated on like what you're going to do for them, they'll lose exactly what they'll lose exactly what you're going to be doing for them and not seeing the value that they're receiving.
And that's where you have to, over communicate, just like you over communicate with your family, like, hey, I have a showing at this time, or I have, a conference to go to, or, I'm going to the city commerce meetings just to make sure that I'm understanding what's going on in the market. And um, I have to go walk this client's dog because they're working 9 to 5. So we have a showing that just came up, and just being able to communicate that this is what you're going to do, and this is why you're hired to do what you hired me to do in order to sell your house, no matter what it takes. I will be there to take your trash out if you're at work and you forgot to put the trash out. I will be there to let your dog out if your wife or husband or partner is not home to do that when we get a last minute showing. So this is the things that AI and these .com agencies can't do for you. We have that emotional um, kick in order to make sure that we are able to do what we need to do and back that up. And a lot of people think that we are overpaid, but I think we're underpaid. If you talk to anybody in regards to how much time we are putting into our clients, especially if we have more than one client at a time, and we're on the listing side and we're on the buying side, and we have 2 or 3 clients, we're out 24/7 or on call 24/7 in order to provide that white glove service that we promised that we were going to have when we went under contract as a buyer or seller agent.
And that's I'm gonna be honest, like when I sold my first house, like hearing 6%, I was like, man, that sounds like a lot to me. Like, like,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what the realtor act provided until my realtor started explaining things to me. And I was like, oh, so this is all the stuff you're gonna do for me. So that's why that we want to offer 6%, or whatever percentage that you decide with your realtor. It's just that just hearing that number is like, oh, everybody's worried about their cut.
Yeah.
Everybody's worried, everybody's worried about their cut, and they're trying to keep as much as possible.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest that's the biggest thing with the sellers. They're trying to keep as much as possible.
Yeah, one of the things is that you just have to go into their playing field, like wherever they work or whatever the industry they're in. You have to come to, their level, like whether they're a doctor or whether they're, um, a lawyer or they're an engineer. If you're a doctor, like, all right, so you're a patient and you're going into you're getting, say, meniscus surgery. When you decide that you want to go into the hospital, are you just paying that surgeon? No, you're paying the surgeon. You're paying the ER nurses and doctors that are in there. You're paying the hospital. You're paying for everyone's services that are being, you're paying for your room, for your recovery. You're paying for everything, and if you're not paying one piece, you're not going to get the service that you deserve. And of course, you could always go the less expensive route, but then you're not going to get the service that may be to save your life. Same thing with you picking a attorney in order to represent you. You can represent yourself all you want, but there's professionals that are here in order to help you to make sure that you are getting through the transaction or getting through the lawsuit, and you don't know all the different strategies or the rules and regulations in order to get to where you need to be.
And I think a big part of this, this lawsuit came about is just that, right now it's a seller's market. It's been a seller's market for a few years now, and it has been budging for the most part because the inventory has been low. So sellers have a big advantage right now, And some people don't feel like a realtor is actually doing anything but besides opening doors, which is not true. As you know, we discussed some of the things that the realtors do. So, you know, selling a house now may seem like it's easier, but in this, even in this big sellers market, selecting the right buyer is very important, because you can get the buyer that has the highest price, but not even the buyer that actually can close. So the biggest thing is, when you do sell your home, you want to make sure that home, that sale goes to the final and then it closes properly. So, you know, I would say, I would say, you know, a big part of this is because it's a big, you know, it's a seller's market. So sellers feel like they should be keeping all this profit among them, just among themselves, because the house will just sell itself.
Yeah,
You know?
you can go on, you can go on and be a for sale by owner, but then once inspections come and appraisal come, and you're negotiating with the professional negotiator on the buyer side, then what? And
Yeah,
you don't know what's going on. If there are uh, material defects in the house, and you have to now, like, say this is your second house, or you're the second owner or the third owner of the house, and there are truss broken up in the attic, or there's a radon leak, or cracks in the foundation that you had no idea about because you didn't get an inspection. What's going to happen at the, or the appraisal comes back much lower than the sales price? How are you going to negotiate with a professional negotiator?
yeah, it's true. You know, like, you know, if a buyer has a agent representing them, it's and someone that knows everything, like, it'll be tough, because, you know, the person may not know prices in terms of how things cost and fixes, and they might be, you know, if you don't know how to negotiate, you end up making some decisions that's going to lose you a lot more money. And I
Hmm.
say the big thing that's come across from this lawsuit is that, you know, the changes that you know can possibly affect the buyer itself. So, like I said before, they're not going to show on MLS in terms of what the buyer agency commissions are, but it's still, I believe it's still going to be able to show that on any of the brokerages' personal websites. So Keller Williams or any of these big brokerages, they can still show buyer agency, or you can always call the real estate agent if they're offering it. But, you know, if someone's not offering a buyer agency compensation, then you should be expected to pay what you agree with your buyer's agent. And it's important to know that you're getting a lot of value from a buyer's agent. Now, one thing I could talk about that is that, you know, the past 3 or 4 weekends, I've shown 28 homes to one client. Now, these 28 homes, you think I didn't research them? I researched them. I make sure it fit what the criteria was. You know, I made sure you know, it had all the features they wanted. I made sure that, you know, it was drivable to where they worked, and I actually picked up the person and drove them around. Drove them around to all those homes. I saved them on gas, and I took them to the homes. Now that took away, you know, time for my family, but I did all the prior research. Like, I was researched before, then I brought the client there. And a lot of times, you know, you go to homes, some homes just, when you see in person, they don't look too great, so you have to move on to the next one. And we put in offers on several properties, and we finally did get under contract, but there was a lot of work as a buyer's agent, you know, and a lot of times these buyer agents, you know, get lost in the mix. Like, they don't prevent value. The buyer agent is probably one of the key principal people in the transaction. They make sure that the buyer goes from the starting line all the way to the finish line. Talking about first, them understanding how to buy a house. First of all, they get them pre-approved, then going through the whole process, because most people do not know how to get there. A lot of times they just, they're clueless. I'm sorry, but they're really clueless on that.
So that brings up to a question. Say your buyer could not afford the closing costs. You got under contract. They don't know what the closing cost is until their lender tells them after going under contract,
Yeah,
after going through appraisal, after going through inspections. If they can't afford closing costs, I'm not saying that's the situation with your
yeah.
client. What makes you think that if this was something that the seller was not going to agree to pay the buyer, if they can't afford closing costs, how are they going to afford paying the buyer agent?
Mm. And that's a problem people are going to have.
That's a problem with at least 80% of first time home buyers are not going to be able to afford paying the buyer agent if the seller is not going to be providing that compensation towards the buyer agent. So that's where it's going to be a huge issue that we're going to run into, and it's going to end up being a lot of dual agency out there. You know, this the listing agent for the seller is going to end up having both sides, but then that's where you have to make sure that your listing agreement says that either one, you don't that the seller is not going to allow dual agency or designated agency and all that. And same thing with the buyer side. You have to make sure if you're a buyer agent, you have to make sure you have a buyer exclusive agreement saying that if the seller does not pay the commission or the brokerage fees, the buyer will pay that. So that's all. I'm not sure how it is in Connecticut, but
Yeah.
that's literally written out in different options in South Carolina.
Well, Connect, we've been on this a long time ago, so we already have a buyer agency agreement that goes over all these different things. It was expected that it was expected that when you sign an agreement with the buyer agent that you will compensate them if nothing is given to them.
Yep.
But a lot of times that, like, say for example, if it was agreed upon at a certain percentage and the seller offered a lower percentage, a lot of times we will accept the lower percentage just for the benefit of the buyer, and we'll probably forego the difference. But that will change because we're gonna be working hard for them. I would say for the most part, and to get them to the end of the sale.
So what happens if your best friend, you're going to be representing your best friend as a buyer agent, and your best friend can't um, afford paying the buyer agent? What are you going to do as your best friend?
Well, as my best friend, we're gonna figure something out. And that's the thing. Like the way these things, like when people couldn't afford closing costs, realtors are figure this thing out in the first place. Maybe we first try say, okay, can the client find any money anywhere else? Can we go to the seller, offer any concessions? In addition, can the client borrow money from family as or a gift or something like that? In addition, like a lot of times realtors will just cut their fees for them,
Mm-hmm.
because what's the most important thing is for them to get the house.
Right.
They try not to cut their fees because it's not like we're not doing the work.
Right. And everybody.
We're still doing the work. It's like, I'm also a nurse. It's like doing a 12-hour shift, then you only get paid for 8 hours. The work is still being done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's what realtors have done in the past to kind of help people get to the finish line. Because after they're a first time buyer and they come around the second time, they realize how much the realtor has helped them, and they usually work with that person again. Because most people usually work with the same realtor they had before. A lot of times, because usually if you're a good realtor, you'll be able to establish trust, and you'll show your fiduciary ability in terms of representing them properly as a buyer or a seller. In addition to, you always stay in contact with your clients.
Yep.
And then those people that always get the referral business because they realize what you've done for them. In addition, they also realize what the education they receive from the realtor.
Right. So the question is, who benefits more to the new settlement? Buyers, sellers, buyer agents, or seller agents?
I would say the sellers will benefit more initially. The sellers will benefit more initially. So they'll benefit more because they feel like they're winning. That they don't have to offer any buyer commission if they don't want to. But that's how it's always been. It's always been negotiable. So, but I feel that over time, what's going to happen is that, especially if you're getting buyers that are not represented and buying homes, you might get people that come from pre-approvals from guys nowhere, from some national bank or whatever that pre-approves them without really checking any documents. No one checked anything. Then you get all the way to the closing table. Then you find out a week before that they're that they're not going to be able to do the close at the end because they weren't able to approve them.
Yeah.
Um, Listing agents they're not going to change their prices. They're
No.
also going to benefit the listing agents because if the sellers feels like they only want to pay a listing agent, they're gonna have to pay the listing agent. If you're going to get their service, full out service, staging, photos, video, social media, door knocking, flyers, all these mailers, all these different things, it's going to have to be a cost that you're going to know. Otherwise, they're going to subtract services that they're going to give you to sell your home.
Yeah. And it just all depends on that listing agent showing their value,
Yeah,
because if the seller is not going to provide that compensation to the buyer side or enough for the listing agent to split with the buyer side, that listing agent is going to be selling the house by themselves.
yeah,
Technically. Of course, as buyer agents, we are not allowed to not go to a home because the buyer agency agreement, the buyer commission is two versus one versus three. And there are other homes that have more, but it's going to happen because there are agents that don't have the integrity we do. And at the same time, the listing agent is going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to be selling this by myself. So that means that from right there, me selling it by myself, there's going to be less traffic.
yeah,
But so you're basically so it's going to be very important for a listing agent to explain to the seller what's going to happen if we're not providing that cooperation compensation, because you know there's going to be less traffic. You're basically telling people you have to pay in order to come to this open house. You have to pay in order to, in terms that you have to pay in order to come see this house. And there's other open houses in the area that are providing, or, you're going to be using um, all the marketing skills that you have and all the resources you have with 3D Matterport. You have military buyers, you have out of state buyers. How are they going to see your house if the listing agent is the only one looking at that house?
that's a
So,
good point.
um, as a listing agent, this is where you show your value. And as a buyer agent, this is where you're going to have to show your value, that you're not just a door opener.
Yeah,
You're looking at comps. Listing agents, you're looking at comps, making sure that you're listing the house at the price where the market is telling you that you need to be. And if your client is not listening to you, or your client is not providing that compensation in order to get more traffic in the door, and you're doing this by yourself, um, this is where it's going to, be difficult on the listing agent. So, the listing agents are going to have to work much harder. But again, just like you said, they're not going to change their their compensation.
you may increase it.
Yeah,
It's very quite possible they increase it, to be honest. And I think if you look at the tier, sellers, listing agents, then I would say buyer agents will be third on the list as a sole benefit, because if you're a buyer agent, you provide value to people, you're going to find customers. You'll have customers say, hey, okay, let's go, Pago, let's go. Start looking at homes. I signed the paper, let's go. When
I
the
mean,
person's going to be hurt the most, it's going to be just the buyers at the end,
yeah. Well,
buyers
right
themselves.
now, the 20% of the agents are doing 80% of the work. So it's going to be more competition. It's going to be less competition, but more valued competition from that 20% that's doing all the work. So the
Yep.
people that are having, six buyers at a time, along with five listings, we're going to be the ones that are going to keep on working, and we're always going to be paid. We are contractors, but each close that we have, we are now unemployed until we get that next listing agreement or buyer agreement. So it just all depends on how much work you want to put into it. And we are not in the 2021, 2022 when you put a house on the market and it's sold within days or hours or even before it's on the market. So you're
Yeah.
gonna really have to, come with all the stops and, do everything that you need to do in order to market that property and get that property under contract as fast as possible.
And that could really show you how the difference in markets, because Ricky's market, is maybe more heading more towards balance, where our market here is still pretty competitive. Things are going pretty fast up here, in all areas, especially in the Fairfield County, um, and New Haven County. Is still pretty hot because that's still within reach of people commuting to New York. So people are still looking to see how far they can commute and still get to work, and to buy into areas that maybe had a little bit of less interest because of the distance, but they're getting people from all over now to purchase homes now, and there's still people still being pretty aggressive, as long as the product is quality.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
So tell us about your market. Where are you located? Obviously, I know where you're located, but for the
yeah.
people who are looking at this for the first time, where are you located and what is your market like?
So I am located in Fairfield County. This in Connecticut.
So is
Um,
is that south? Is that like
Well, this is south. So this is south. This is we're right. It goes Fairfield County goes Fairfield County, then Westchester County in New York, then it goes to New York City from there. So we're very close to New York City, like one of the popular cities that's close to the New York border is Stamford, Connecticut, and that is about maybe like a 45-minute train ride into the Manhattan.
Mhm.
So it's a commuter's dream because the prices are a little bit lower here and the taxes are a little better here in Connecticut. So we got attracted a lot of buyers from New York, especially due to the pandemic, because a lot of people during the pandemic were allowed to work from home. So they were like, "Hey, great! Now I can live in Connecticut and still make my New York money."
Right.
So it caused the market to shift dramatically into a big time sales market here. So a lot of the homes here, especially in Lower Fairfield County, they go pretty quickly. They go within less than 14 days at times under contract. A lot of the worst that you hear as a buyer agent, highest and best. a great a great strategy for a selling agent, but the highest and best is one of the worst things you hear. In addition, when you hear open house, you like, clients like I hate open houses. Because they want less traffic in homes that they want. They want less traffic there so that they can give a competitive offer and save a little bit of money too. But right now, this is not about a market here in Connecticut about necessarily saving up front at the time. This is more establishing the value of you have for the home. Does it fit your criteria? Does it fit? And later on, probably most likely refinancing out. Even though the interest rates are dipping lower, I know earlier this year they're 7.5%. Now they're closer to 6.9%, which is an improvement. But as these things, as the real interest rate goes down, the interest is going to go. The demand even go even higher.
Yep. That's what I keep on telling people. I mean, like right now we're at a FHA 30 years 6.47, fixed VA 30 year is 6.49, and conventional is about 7.02. So depending on what market you are in, you have to make sure that you have all the resources and all the people you trust. What's up? Shout out to Mark. He's on here. He just wrote great info. He's cool, and you just have to make sure you have everybody that is providing you resources, and use that valued agent that is going to be able to provide you with their team that's going to get you to the promised land.
Yeah. Yeah, and right now, and I'm a newer agent. I'm not totally new, but I'm a new agent, and I would say that the big thing is that, I mean, again, people understand contracts, understand what contracts are. People not realizing that when you put in offers for homes, like you have to actually put a contract in. It's not just an email. You're not calling the agent, tell them a number. You have to put contracts down, because I know in Connecticut this is attorney state, and you have to have something on paper written in a former contract. If you're not having it provided by a realtor, because we usually use a contract from our local board of realtor association. If you're not using that, then you're probably using a contract from an attorney to provide to the seller. And that's one interesting point to bring up. Like that's going to put more emphasis on attorneys to provide these contracts. And attorneys, they don't look at homes.
Yeah.
They don't show homes. They know real estate law, and they know how to protect your deposit if you're a buyer. They know how to protect your interest as a seller, but they don't spend their time how to evaluate homes and how to determine the value of a home. So it's going to be, if you have attorneys just submitting contracts for you, it's just going to be the buyer figuring out on their own, and the attorneys can't help you with certain things. Some of them have the experience, but some of them do not have the time. Some of them have to go to court to do these things, and their fees will go up.
Yep.
And they'll, because they usually charge like a flat fee for their services. But if people are expecting more on attorneys, they're gonna have to charge a lot more money. So in the end, is the cost will be shifted somewhere else.
Yep, exactly. And that's where a great agent, realtor, as well as loan officer, lender is going to be able to help you out because they know the local market. And if you go to these .com lenders or these big lenders or these .com agents, they're not going to know the local market. They have a blanket strategy or blanket regulations that they use, and it's not going to be good for every market. My my current buyer right now, we went under contract on a home, and we got messed up because the lender that they used sent a agent or some kind, a data collector, to take pictures of the home, and the appraiser didn't even come to the house, and the appraiser was
Oh,
20,000 less than no 70,000 less than where we were under contract with, so we lost the deal. So you have to make sure, no matter if you used your lender from another state or in the past, you need to use. I'm not saying you need to use. It's best to use a local agent and a local lender that knows that market, because you can lose out on a deal just by trying to save money. Whether it's percentage, application fees, and you can miss out on a lot, especially if you're in a time crunch. So, try to make sure that you are interviewing agents, you're interviewing lenders, and don't just go with the first one you see, and make sure that you're asking for references. So, just being able to be in a market, like you said, the Connecticut market is much different than the Charleston market. So,
yeah.
um, make sure you get somebody, no matter where you are, or get a reference from somebody. Like we are able to refer you to anybody in the U.S. We can find somebody that we have studied with, that we have, ate with, that we have been to conferences and education conferences with top agents that are like-minded, and we are able to refer you to anybody that we trust. I don't like referring a lot of people, because if I haven't worked with them, or if I haven't sat down and broke bread with them, I'm not going to refer you just to somebody just because they're from Cal Williams. I'll
Yeah.
refer somebody to any agency that I know is the best, because that's a representation of me. So no matter where you are, whether you are in Boston, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Chicago, Texas, California, we have somebody to help you out.
No, that's a good point. You have a wide variety of networks, and it's good to know to work with someone that someone else knows in terms of referrals. And
Yeah.
and that's going to be one of the big things that come out of this is just that you're going to have find someone that you trust, because trust can be a big factor when you sign these contracts with people, especially with buyers, because when the money starts coming, if it start coming out of their pocket, then they're gonna have to trust a person that they're going to guide them the right way. What do you think in terms of, like, I've always thought about this, if this once this happens occurring, do you think that there'll be maybe a shift, like more towards a balanced market because of this?
Um, I think everyone that is doing what they're supposed to be doing right now, it's not going to affect them.
Yeah.
It may affect a lot of new buyer agents and new listing agents that are not that don't have the experience, that don't know how to articulate what's going on, and don't know how to explain to their client base or their followers what's going on. So I think that the market is going to shift in regards to there's going to be a lot of agents that get out of the business because they don't know what they're doing, or they're not being educated enough, or they're not finding the resources, or the people that will be able to help them out to get to through the finish line. So being able to provide those resources and those references to your followers, you're not going to be able to, do business.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was just wondering because, like, you would think like, how is it going to affect the buyer's demand? Would it take some people out of the market now and kind of cool down the market because of that?
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be buyers. There's always going to be
Yeah,
sellers. Everyone
yeah.
needs a place to stay, whether you're leasing or whether you're buying. And the agents that are able to provide value in regards to how it's going to benefit their clients, they are, or we are going to be the ones that are doing this podcast, or doing this live, and providing the information that people need in order to get to where they want to be. It's the American dream to purchase a home,
Yeah.
and this is why I want to get more on social media and provide this education to everybody, because I feel like I'm doing a disservice of not showing everybody what's going on out there and making sense of what the media is messing everything up on.
Well, that's
So
the media is for. The media is for. They have the agenda. They got make their money.
yeah,
No, they serve their purpose. They serve this purpose. But no, I think the biggest thing with this settlement though is this that when the changes come this summer, when the buyer agency compensation is no longer shown, it's just the biggest thing I would say is like everything is always negotiable. That should be always the first thing you need to know as a seller or buyer. Everything is negotiable. Just that when you negotiate on price with your realtor, you negotiate on maybe on some services too.
yeah,
So what you should, and don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of people are afraid to ask questions. They think that they'll understand. Like, don't sign something, then later ask questions later. Make sure that I get those questions all up front, even if you need a little time. Read through the contract in front of the agent.
yeah,
You come across their questions. Like, I usually read through all my contracts with my buyers so they know each section, what they mean and what they're signing.
yeah,
And it's important because people don't read the details,
right.
and there could be other fees involved that people don't explain. So I would say always read through your contracts. It's a basic thing that you can do, and most people know how to read in this country and use that tool. you know
And ask for references. Ask
yeah.
for look at their reviews. Their reviews are public. Every agent wants as much reviews as possible because that is our bloodline. Whether it's reviews or referrals, that is how we get the most of our business and and build the trust. Is because people are looking for referrals and looking for people that they like and trust. So also, asking for other agents' opinions. If you have an agent that down here, anybody you ask know at least 10 to 15 agents. So it all depends on what agent is providing the most value in regards to educating the people what they want or what they see on media. Those are the agents that are winning the best. So just being able to ask, all right, if I talk to this agent, what are they going to say about you? If I talk to this lender, what are they going to say about you? And because there's a lot of agents that don't have uh, the relationships built. There's a lot of dog eat dog agents, and there's a lot of agents that other agents love to work with. So if you're one of those agents that people love to work with, or have seen you doing good, those are the agents that, once you get a listing, you're likely gonna get more traffic just based off your name alone and your value and your reputation. So you got to ask for all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, people do look you up. Whenever time you put an offer in, they look up the agent. They see
Oh
what
yeah,
they've done in sales. They look what they if they have completed a sale before, and
yeah,
because they have to trust you that you're able to guide the buyer all the way through the process. Because a lot of things come up that you're not going to expect to come up in a transaction, and
yeah.
so it's important to be able to address these issues because a weaker agent would just let the deal just break apart.
Right,
But most times there's many options for people to do. So you know this settlement, there was a money value to it. I think it was about around like $400 million. I think the settlement was, so that'll be disbursed at some point to the sellers that are part of the class action shoot. I know I've had one friend who actually received a postcard because I think he had a real estate transaction during that point in time. So he actually received a postcard in his mail in relation to the settlement. I think it was like even like 2 months ago, right when they kind of first announced the settlement. So, and these will be paid out by people part of the National Realtor Association. So me, you, and everybody else part of that group. So we probably be paying for these fees. So, you know, that's something that that's another cost that we're gonna have to face. But it is what it is, and we're not gonna keep. We're gonna keep on being realtors because there's a lot of people that need our help.
right. And I'm here to do it.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so that was it pretty much for the NAR settlement, like kind of the details of it. You know, try to read more about it if you can. And if you can't read about it, just call your local realtor, the realtor that helped you in the past, and just call them and have discussion on it because they can give you the facts. Because a lot of stuff you read on the media is bias, and they're not getting both sides of the argument, and not kind of understanding kind of like the history of why things were in the past and why things and how things protected also the buyer side, not just necessarily the seller side. So reach out to agent, get information, and contact them. And if they're not contacting you already, I know I keep contact my people. So when I call you up, feel free to ask your questions about it, and also ask for Ricky when Ricky has this conversation with you, feel free to ask him about these questions. I usually do this podcast every Tuesday, and Rick, this is the second time Rick has been on this show. Um, Rick is gonna be on social media a lot more, so I want you to go to his Facebook page, like his Facebook page, like my Facebook page, and just keep an eye on what he posts out there. He posts a lot more shorter videos. I should post some shorter videos too, not like these long hour videos. So feel free to look at the content he's providing because he's providing some facts on the NAR settlement and like kind of how it's affecting everybody else on both sides of the table.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I hope you guys have a good night. I appreciate y'all. Go ahead and do what you got to do. It's nighttime. Do what you need to do at night.
You're full.
So you guys have a good night, y'all, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Peace out.
Peace.
One love.